This is Comic Picks by the Glick.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Hey, Jason Glick, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine, John, and yourself?
Doing all right. What do you have on tap for us tonight?
Well, tonight is a subject that, it's like I kind of sort of wanted to talk about for a while, but, just couldn't find the time because it's, on one hand, it's like about an anime series like I've loved for a good long while, I mean, decades at this point. But, it's like you kind of figure like, when am I going to find the right time to talk about this? Well, how about when they actually do a new anime series based on this title? I'm talking about the series Trigun by Yasuhiro Naitao. And while the original anime series is a stone cold classic, in my opinion, it's like the new series also, has stuff to recommend it as well. But in between that, it's also based off a manga. It's like series that, I actually did not read until really quite recently. But also, it's a series that is like really quite beloved by a good friend of mine, Marisa. Hey, Marisa, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. It's like, oh, and it's like for longtime listeners, Marisa is actually Rob's wife. But the thing is, I only know Rob because he married Marisa. I've known Marisa for like close to 2 decades at this point.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's accurate.
yeah. In fact, it's like the whole reason we're here to I invited her to talk about Trigun is because she was actually in the anime club Video Burn at University of California Riverside that I ran. It's like, and I actually showed Trigun, and that was her first time she had seen it. It's like, and we kind of experienced it together. It's like it. So you've got good memories of that, right, Marisa?
Oh yeah, I want to say we saw so many great anime in the club, but that was the first one that I just fell in love with during the watch. Just totally fell for during while we were watching it.
Yeah, it's like, and Trigun. It's basically the story of a guy, Vash the Stampede. It's like spiky blonde hair. It's like crazy red overcoat. Big. It's like gigantic ass gun, and he's all about love and peace, spreading spreading goodwill throughout the planet No Man's Land, which is basically a sci-fi Wild West type landscape. But the thing is, he's also the most wanted man on the planet with a $60 billion double dollar bounty, and also he's been classified as a human natural disaster, all because wherever he goes, wanton destruction, follows in his wake, right?
Yeah, that's that's true. He's not technically classified as a human disaster, like an act of God, basically, until midway through the show. But yeah, disaster follows him, and it's future space planet gun action.
Just like it says on the manga itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that some of the series appeal is that it's a really good action comedy for the first half of its run, because it's just basically all about Vash getting in these really outlandish situations where lots of destruction is caused, not entirely through his direct involvement, but just it happens because he's around. And there's also these two insurance ladies, Meryl Streif and Millie Tompkins. It's who are
Thompson.
just Thompson, yes. So they are. It's they're just trying to manage the inherent risk of his existence. It's initially, in fact. But the thing is, when they first encounter him in the anime, it's they're just wait, he's such a dork and it's just so weird. He can't be the actual Vash the Stampede, and it's not. They don't actually confirm this until several episodes in, that he's actually Vash himself. It's and then also they meet the priest with who's carrying the cross, Wolfwood, who is, as far as I'm concerned, in the anime, is one of the all-time great supporting characters, because every episode he shows up in, it's just that much better simply because of his presence, and also because he's kind of meant to be the cynic towards Vash's espousedness of love and peace. He's just not about to buy into that, but he's also just someone who is also trying to offer his own brand of faith and forgiveness. And also the reason when people get his hands on his cross, it's this is so heavy, and he's yes, because it's so full of mercy.
And of course,
Yeah.
later you find out it's not just mercy that it's full of.
It's a specific kind of mercy.
Yeah, there you go. That's accurate.
Yeah. And the thing is like that this is like the first half of the series. It's just basically like lots of fun comedy action. And then about halfway once you get about to the halfway point, things start getting just a little bit darker, especially with I think like once Legato Blue Summer shows up, that's when things start getting like a bit more dramatic, because you find out that there's also this other group of people who are out to get Vash, known as the Gung Ho Guns, and they're led. We find out later that they're led by his brother, Knives, which he's every bit as intimidating as his name would imply, and that's kind of like what the how the series' second half goes, because the first half does a great job of jarring you in with this fun action comedy stuff, then it starts twisting the knife and showing you just how because Vash has he's not just having necessarily like a non-violence philosophy. He just doesn't want to kill anyone. He wants everyone to live out their lives in happiness. But there are also those who are just determined to test that, test that belief down to its bleeding edge, and that's where that's how the second half of the series goes, when the Gung Ho Guns just start putting Vash's convictions to the test. And oh man, it is something else, right, Marisa?
Yes. Yeah. And I love that the original one, and maybe it was like because they had to pace things this way, because the manga was there was only so much manga material to draw from. But they really they play around in the first few episodes with whether with who even is Vash the Stampede, and they kind of let the characters have a lot of time to really you get to know them. Yeah, you get to know them, and they get to know each other, and by the time serious stuff is going on, it's like you really you understand Vash's philosophy, and you just feel it's just like you really feel the sense of brutality for him when he sees people getting murdered that he can't save, and going up against the Gung Ho Guns and having to make these really tough decisions, and still being able to live by his philosophy of not killing and not taking another life, but still defending life. He's like a peace-loving gunman, but he'll get serious when it's called for.
Yeah, and I think that's some of the appeal of Welders. I mean, just like this whole the shift to drama, and just how his convictions are tested in the back half of the series, and even when they're broken, they'll show just how Vash is able to come back from that. It's like in the end, I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Marisa, but I seem to remember when this is a specific memory for the time running the club, but I didn't get the last DVD of Trigun until the day I was supposed to start showing the final final episode, basically the first half of the final round of episodes, because the final DVD had 4 episodes. I was set to show the first 2 that day at Video Burn, and it's when we got to the end of those, I had not watched these, so I hadn't watched these episodes prior to it. So basically, when we got to the first end of those first 2 episodes, I was and we saw what Vash had to do in order to save Meryl and Millie. It's holy shit! And then afterwards, I was hey, everyone's coming back next week, right? so that's how I remember it. So, and
yeah, I remember the halfway point of the series where things had gotten really serious, and then all of a sudden, I think they had a recap episode, and then they have the episode where they tell you the backstory of when Vash and Knives were young, and it was just I think my jaw was on the floor the whole time. It was such a shock. I didn't expect anything like it. You kind of got the feeling that Vash had lived for a long time and that he had special.
That there was something otherworldly about him.
Yeah, but they keep that mystery for so long. And so then when they hit you with like the spaceships and you're, that it was like, it was kind of mind blowing. It was like, okay, I know this is like the future. This isn't Earth, this is somewhere else, but you don't really know until you get, that episode. And that was a long ways into it.
Yeah, it's like, and actually the writers had to like come up with that stuff like kind of on the fly, really, because that wasn't touched upon, and because the way Trigun is, the original series is based on, it's only based on the first two volumes of the manga, which are basically like published as Trigun in the US, and basically like the staff basically had to like come up with like the basically after like Vash shoots the hole in the moon. Yes, this is the thing that happens. It's like they basically had to like kind of wing everything after that.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing, and I wonder how closely they were able to work with Yasuhiro Naito, who I know was like just over the moon. He was so happy, about them making an anime. Like, I feel like they had to have access to some of his plans for what he wanted to do in Trigun Maximum, because there is.
Hey, Marisa, you muted your mic.
Dear. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I wonder if there's some stuff that they knew was planned for the first couple volumes of Maximum because of like some overlapping kind of stories and stuff. But yeah, what they did was amazing, because even with that, like, I want to say they did a great job with the anime.
Yeah, because when it comes to like winging it, like doing anime original stuff, that more often than that seems to be a recipe for disaster. But it actually turned out really well in Trigun. In fact, so well that apparently what I've read is that Naito actually followed like the anime original stuff, like when have Vash being Eric's.
Yeah,
like that was actually, he actually just like that, like the way they did that in the anime. So he just decided, why not do that, follow that in Maximum. So
yeah, and towards the end of Maximum, I noticed that there was like some like a part when Vash is remembering all the people whose lives he's touched, and it was like there were all these panels that were directly from the anime that weren't even covered in Maximum or the two first volumes. But I think that the author, loved the anime so much, she was like, that's part of his story too.
Yeah, it's like, and so I think that I think we can like safely say like the first the original Trigun anime, it's like it's a really good adaptation of like the manga. So basically,
yeah. I would say my husband was unsatisfied with the ending of the original.
Did you think there was too much recap? Because
no, it wasn't about that. It was just like, I think he had difficulty believing in the ending, the way it was. And I don't know. I don't know if
I can get that, because I think that the ending of the original anime basically kind of wants you to believe in hope that Knives will get better. It's like after this, but at the same time, I can understand like if there's issues with that.
Yeah, that's basically, he's like, well, what, obviously he's not gonna just be magically better, suddenly be a good person.
Yeah, but there's also like a lot of good stuff in those last couple episodes, like Millie.
Oh yeah.
I'm telling Vash, like giving him Wolfwood's weapon, saying like, yeah, it's because it's heavy because it's so full of mercy.
Yeah.
And also like him Vash hearing Wolfwood speaking his mind, like it's like it's to your right, just
right
pick
there,
it up,
just use it.
Yeah.
Why don't you use it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was satisfied with the ending of the anime. It does leave it open, and it leaves it open to your imagination to kind of think about what could happen. But there is a future for all the characters that are still around by that episode. And so, yeah, you have hope, and you're also, I don't know, I was happy that, it's like Vash had his blank ticket and he was,
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't in a mental crisis anymore.
Yes, and it kind of leaves you, leaves you wanting more. And hey, you know what? For everyone who looks at Trigun, watches the original Trigun series and goes, I want to know more. I want to know what happens next. Well, it's like we've got the manga for you. We've got those 2 volumes of Trigun and 14 volumes of Trigun Maximum, which it's like the first 2 volumes of Trigun. It's like I think that it's like they're more or less fairly close to the it's like like what you saw up to the point where Vash blasts the hole in the moon. It's like, and it's like I think, and I don't want to like dismiss them entirely, but it's just kind of like there's not a whole lot to talk about right there, because it's basically like they're working, like the anime was working off like the manga, and the Trigun manga at that point was just those 2 supersized volumes. So it's like I don't know, it's like what you see there is what you get, and it's a perfectly serviceable adaptation, even though it's like there are a couple things towards the end that like they kind of like make explicitly different. Basically, Legato being put in his place by Knives after he comes back, and also Wolfwood being clearly established as one of the members of the Gung Ho Guns as well, which is something that they kind of sort of danced around in the anime, but at the same time it's not really like a really real issue, at least. But then you get Trigun Maximum, and then you get like, well, it's like it's a lot of action, isn't it, Marisa?
Yeah, Trigun Maximum has a lot of action. It's got a lot more with the Gun Ho guns, and yeah, I mean, I would say so. It's 14 volumes, right? And like the last 4 are like one kind of big battle almost.
Yeah, it's like I know what you mean there, because like those 4 volumes, I mean, even though it's like it maintains like it's a big much more epic scale compared to what we saw in the anime, because on one hand, like you got the feeling that it's like the fate of the planet was kind of at stake, but at the same time, it's like it was basically like Vash versus like the Gung Ho Guns, which is like I don't want to say it's like a villain of the week type deal, but it was kind of close to that. But it was also just Vash also just trying to settle things with his brother Knives. But with the manga, it's like it takes on a much more like much bigger scale, because while Vash is firmly on the side of humanity, it's like in this series, Knives is like he believes that like humanity is just like no good. It's like that I need to like stick up for my people, the plants. It's like, and just it's like, and like humanity needs to go as a result. So it's not just like, but so it's on one hand it's just it's Knives and the Gung Ho Guns versus everyone else on the planet. But then it also gets completely bigger once you find out that, oh wait, like Earth is still a factor in the story, and that they're also going to be sending their own forces out to planet No Man's Land as well.
And they've had like over 100 years of technological progress.
Yeah, which it's like it really doesn't work out well for them. It's like once that final thing conflict sets up, because that's how the way things go in these stories. Like as advanced as Earth may have gotten, it's like, hey, Knives like has found a way to like circumvent any advancements they have, especially with like the Independence, which is the plants who basically provide all the power in this future world. And while he and Vash are independent, so you see like scions of the plants, like who basically given their own personalities. Earth has their own ones as well, and they're also trying to like take they view like happenings on planet No Man's Land as a major threat to universal peace, and it's not good.
Yeah, to be a threat to the existence of humanity in the universe, to wherever they've expanded to at this point. Yeah, and then the other big difference from the anime is that in the manga he's going around and gathering plants from the working plants that are on the planet No Man's Land, and like sort of absorbing them into himself in a way to like make them free of humanity, or free from having to work for humanity.
Free of humanity, but also subservient to him.
Yes, and that's of course where the interesting conflict is with Vash, and when he's able to connect to the plants.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing too that the anime didn't really have, because they had Zazie the Beast, but Zazie was less a representative of the plants than he was in the manga. In the manga, he really was like a representative of the worms, of the native life on the planet. And so I was happy to see in the new anime too, I was happy to see that they
we'll talk about Stampede in a bit.
Sorry. But yeah, in the manga they kind of touch on that too, where there's a little bit of a negotiation between Knives and the native worms and their collective sort of consciousness, which doesn't work out well for the worms.
Nope. Yeah, especially if I remember correctly, I think it's like Mid Valley and Hoppard. It's like when Zazie tries to make his play, it's like Hoppard and Mid Valley put him in his place, right?
Yeah. Of course, since he's part of the worm consciousness, apparently he can just get another body. But but I think he also kind of noped out of there after that.
Yeah, it's like, but you also mentioned while overall I enjoyed reading Trigun, because it's like Maximum for the first time. Well, because I think I'd tried reading this like 2 other times beforehand, because I think David had started buying Trigun, and so I didn't buy it because he was buying it, so I could just borrow it from him. And I also think this was also during my unemployed time, where I couldn't buy as much stuff as I wanted to. So, but also then I borrowed some of Maximum from you at some point. But I didn't actually follow through on it. So it's like, this is like my first time reading through the entire series front to back. And the thing is, I think that Night Owl does deliver some great action scenes, just people posed in impossible positions, delivering crazy action, and he's good with, and some good comedy bits as well. And when he does slow down, it's he can do some really good dramatic stuff. Probably the stuff that sticks in my mind the most from the series is from an emotional point, is when we find out about Vash and Knives' history, but not just their time with their guardian Rem, but also when they find out just what the humans did, it's to the original
independent,
Tesla.
Yeah,
that was on one hand it's a sequence where it's just oh my god, it's this is horribly awful, but I can also kind of believe that humans would just do that, because on one hand, it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like they're trying to actively hurt her, but they're just experimenting on her so much.
Yeah, it was kind of a Akira moment to see that.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh yeah. But and it's interesting to see how it affected both of them, because Vash takes it a lot harder than Knives, who Knives basically kind of passed out because of this, but
then he seems to almost not remember.
Yeah, and then you find out that, oh my god, he did remember it, and he's just kind of internalized this, and that's kind of where his inherent hatred of humanity comes from. But Vash, he was there, he was awake for the whole thing, takes it out on Rem, but also this is kind of the origin of his, I'm not going to kill anyone, because he almost crossed that line early on, but then you see that, oh my god, it's when he realizes that what could have happened if he had killed someone, you realize that, okay, this is why he is the way he is, and this is why his mentality on this particular situation is specific. I mean, yeah, it may seem unrealistic early on, but then when you understand see what he went through, you realize, okay, I get it now. At least that's how I felt.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I think that when I first read that part of the manga, having seen the anime and how Vash's philosophy is, I was so shocked. I almost kind of wanted to reject it. Like, oh well, this isn't like the real,
This is
because
the Vash I know.
yeah, because it's so shocking. But then, especially after rereading it more recently, I'm like, this makes a lot of sense, and I think it helps explain. It gives his character more depth for that to have happened in the manga. As disturbing as it is to like think that he almost killed like the only person that he really, the only human that he loved at that point. It's like it explains the reverse, how strong his conviction is afterwards to protect humanity.
Yeah, because you can't really like have that kind of I don't want to say insane conviction, but like that kind of like dedicated conviction, to preserving life without having almost taking it yourself.
Well, and also because like it seemed like a logical reaction in a way for Knives. It's like he sees the kind of almost like the worst things that humanity can do in person, and he reacts in sort of the logical way of like humanity is just awful.
It gives
And maybe
his perspective, as warped as it may be. It's like just like the tiniest amount of justification.
yeah, but you also kind of see how Vash has already decided after that whole incident with Rem. He's decided like, yeah, humanity can be awful, but this person isn't awful, and people deserve a chance, and everyone deserves. No one should take the life of another person, so it's like he's worked it out by that point that he decides. And I should say too, like in the manga, that he takes it out on himself first. Like he's so disturbed by what he sees with Tesla that he basically just decides he doesn't want to live anymore, and he starts starving himself. And it's his reaction to Rem trying to get him to eat. That kind of makes him snap.
Exactly. So
where he like tries to kill himself, and Rem stops him, and then he lashes out at her, and it also explains too, like in the anime maybe it's more emphasized than in the manga, but he also part of his philosophy is that suicide is also out as an option, not okay ever.
Indeed. Yeah, but what we're talking about, I think, is probably the high point of the manga for me. Everything else, on one hand, it's like I don't think it's not necessarily bad, but I think that Night Owl doesn't have a good sense of pacing in terms of like how everything is delivered, because it feels like, because a lot of the action scenes and the battles like kind of feel like they go on for a really long time, like multiple volumes. It's like there's like the part where Vash and Wolf would go back to their Vash's like home spaceship. It's like, and like there's like when they're fighting off against Leonov, the puppet master, and like was it Gray the Nine Lives, and that goes on for a couple volumes. Then you've got then you go on for when Wolfwood goes on to convent Livio, the two Fangs, Chapel, and like Trip of Death, and that's several volumes as well. And then you got that final conflict you're talking about, which is like almost 4 volumes long, and it's like, my God, it's like this is kind of like almost like Shonen Jump level pacing here. It's just kind of like, I get it. It's like, can you just like please get to the point already? I mean, it's like there's just like so much like action, like where they're just like everyone's fighting, and then just when you think that something is gonna happen to like change things, it's like, oh nope, we're just gonna keep fighting. Like it's like as well, even when like Vash shows up during Wolfwood's fight against Livio and Trip, it just kind of feels like, okay, things are gonna change right now, but nope, it's just gonna keep on, and it's like, and the action is just kind of like Night Owl is just kind of like he's a very stylish artist. It's like he's also just like kind of guy who like really believes in like the '90s image theory of like like posing like during an action scene makes everything cooler than hell. And no, it does not.
I kind of think it does, but no,
Okay.
I probably think the author would agree with you that his pacing was a little wacky, because I think he wanted, maybe he drew out the parts that he really wanted to last, including all the cool poses and
all the double
scenes.
page spreads.
And there were some things that it seemed like he, almost like forgot about midway through, or just like had to move on to the next. And, there were some things that were confusing in the manga, even though it was, like battles were done in such detail and stuff. There was still a little bit of confusion for me on certain things.
Not going to argue with you there, because I mean, like I said, he's a stylish artist. I also think that his clarity in action sequences, like at this point in his career, like could have used a little work as well, just making everything like flow better from page to page and panel to panel too.
Right, especially when he's jumping between like two different action scenes, two different fights with like Livio and Elendira and Legato and Vash, and where Millie and Meryl are, and where the Earth people are, and where the heck it does get a little confusing.
Yeah, it's like, and also I do want to mention that it's like even though like the pacing like I think is like just kind of like really weird and whack throughout like the series, especially in its back half. I do think like his storytelling like in certain parts is really strong. We already talked about his his fleshing out of Vash's like no killing perspective, but also I think that Legato gets a much more rounded perspective in the manga as well, because while he was like a really good villain in the it's like in the anime, to the point where like he succeeded so much in that series that he was awarded with a bullet to the head. But in the manga, it's like he also kind of just like struggles as well, because while he is someone who's just like so like committed to being Knives' right hand, like to the point where it's like he's like he thinks he understands Knives as like better than anyone else, but he really doesn't, and he pays the price at certain points as well. But you also like understand why he'd be so dedicated to Knives' perspective after we find out like much like towards the end, like about how Knives saved him from his life in slavery. So
yeah, in the anime, I don't believe you get any backstory on Legato other than that he's
just plain
ends
evil.
up with Vash's arm, and that's the source of his power. But yeah, you don't understand any of how he got to where he was, working for Knives. And there is a lot more in the manga about why each character ends up working for Knives, or how they got in the gun-ho guns. Yeah, and that's kind of satisfying to see some of the.
That's true. I mean, like the series, like the manga does offer a lot more like backstory for its individual characters, but it also does so like in the most elaborate and overextended like way possible. It's like, I mean, like I said, it's not that I didn't like reading Trigun the manga. It's just like kind of like felt like a lot of stuff. The pacing was just like so stretched out, like over certain scenes. Just
especially towards the end. Yeah. Towards the end of
it. That ultimately it's like reading this, I honestly do kind of felt that Trigun the anime now kind of belongs in the very rarefied category of series where I believe that the anime is better than the manga.
Oh wow. Oh man. I don't think I could choose exactly. I think when I first read the manga, I would definitely be in that camp, because I just loved the anime, and I still love it so much that I'm like, that is the gold. That's the real Trigun. And especially with some of the more stressful things that happen in Trigun Maximum, it's like I just thought the anime was perfect in some ways. But now that I've reread it, I couldn't choose. I'm just happy that the manga goes on, because, like you said, it gives you more, more to enjoy after the anime. And
Yeah, I get it. I mean, that's kind of like what you want when you're reading the manga of an anime you watch. Like, you want more of what you loved.
yeah, so I appreciate it on its own more now than I did, right after watching the original anime.
Yeah, but really, really quick. One thing that I also looked into while I was reading the manga. Also, it's like I also reread some volumes of Nighthow's follow up, Blood Blockade Battlefront.
Ah.
And this is a series he definitely does not go for the same epic level of storytelling that he goes for in Trigun. I mean, it's just basically like New York has basically been transformed into like a supernatural like place called Jerusalem's Lot, where you've got all these like weird, it's like weird supernatural life forms living alongside humans now. But also, it's like one thing I appreciated there is that like his storytelling is a lot more compact with each chapter, because like, Trigun it kind of felt like he was going like for like a monthly or maybe even bi-weekly perspective, like for each chapter. But this one, like each chapter is like supersized, where it's like you get like 40 pages each, and he's actually telling like a more or less complete story either over one chapter or at least over two chapters. So he's not letting things stretch out and go like over the top as he did with Trigun. So I mean, while you lose that big epic fate of the world sensibility here, you do get at least more immediately satisfying stuff. I mean, I don't necessarily want to say this is better, but after like going through like a series where like the final volume took like 4 volumes to like deliver its climax. I really liked how with Blood Blockade Battlefront he could just like deliver like a new crazy scenario. It's like in each chapter. It's like I'll say it, like rereading Trigun made me appreciate Blood Blockade Battlefront. It's like that much more.
I'm gonna have to, and they have an anime for that, right?
They have 2 seasons for it. I mean,
oh my gosh.
this is the thing is like Dark Horse published 10 volumes of Blood Blockade Battlefront, and there's also a sequel series, Blood Blockade Battlefront Back to Back, which is still in Japan, but is probably not going to come out over here because Dark Horse only finished publishing Blood Blockade Battlefront after the anime came out and boosted its profile. Apparently, it didn't boost its profile so much that they wanted to go and license Back to Back. So that's disappointing. But even then, like the 10 volumes of Blood Blockade Battlefront, like I said, I only reread 5, but I also remember like the final volume delivered like a really solid volume length story that actually made me go, hey, this is probably better than this is like like better than I expected. So there's that. But I just wanted to throw that in because like I just wanted to read Blood Blockade Battlefront for perspective on here. But I guess like we also probably need to talk about like the reason we're doing this in the first place, and that's the new anime series Trigun Stampede, which I'm not sure what I was expecting initially because I was kind of maybe slightly or somewhat under the impression that we were going to get a story that was like more closer to the manga, basically like this is like the manga like adapted from the manga version that anime series have been doing like for several years now. Like basically we're getting like the that kind of like from the manga treatment, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has been enjoying for several years now. That kind of thing. But that's not exactly what we got now, is it, Marisa?
No, they did something very different.
Yeah, it's like they basically gave us a prequel story that basically tells us what was happening with Vash and Knives up until the point where the city of July met its untimely fate. Which spoilers, July is kind of doomed in every Trigun timeline now. So, but
as soon as you saw that town, you knew it's not going to stick around.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, like they like even though this is like essentially like a prequel like to the Trigun story, it's also bringing in a lot of stuff from the like from the manga and original and by extension the original anime as well, because like we get to like Wolfwood shows up, obviously, because at this point you can't do a Trigun story without bringing Wolfwood, but you also get other like members of the Gung Ho Guns, like Mona of the Gale, E.G. Mine. It's like those kinds of guys. Oh, the Nebraska family as well.
Briefly.
Briefly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a prequel. It has prequel elements to it, but they, they made some interesting decisions. And at first, I wasn't too crazy about it, but they sort of dissolved a lot of the mystery, which makes me think that they knew that most of the,
The
audience was
audience.
going to come in knowing something about the original Trigun, and maybe so the mystery wasn't so important to them.
That's
And
the impression I got as well.
yeah, which that's a choice I can respect. But it was one of the things that I loved about the original, for sure. And then they made a few other strange decisions.
So Marisa, how do you feel about Meryl's senpai, Robert De Niro?
I do not like it. And yeah, I mean, part of it is definitely just to get it out there ahead of time. Part of it is definitely that Meryl and Millie were, one of the few female characters in the original show. The main four, Vash and Nicholas D. Wolfwood and Meryl and Millie, they really made up the anime. But of course, you could probably consider it a shonen, a show, because it centers on, Vash the Stampede, and he does most of the action. But the fact that they took Millie out of, I'll say, season 1, expecting that they're going to do a season 2, and effectively nerfed Meryl for her appearance in this season is disturbing. And it feels a little unfair. And they brought Nicholas D. Wolfwood in much sooner than, I believe much sooner than the original anime. And hey, I love Nicholas D. Wolfwood. I don't mind that they had more of him in this in Stampede. It's kind of neat to see more of stuff that they touch on in the manga with Nicholas D. Wolfwood. But it's just inescapable that you lose some of the heart with losing Millie and not having her in there. And then the addition of the Roberto De Niro character was just like, he's literally like a stereotype. He's got a name that's obviously, a kind of,
And
I don't know.
He's kind of like a font of exposition for much of his run.
But he still just doesn't, I just had the expectation that, like, yeah, okay, they're obviously going to get rid of him probably at some point. And I guess he's supposed to, like, teach, Meryl stuff, but he just seems needless. And he just seems like an excuse to, like, force Meryl to take a step down from, from where she was in the manga and in the anime, which is too bad.
No, it's like I definitely think everything you said there was right. I mean, maybe I feel a little more positive about Mr. De Niro because he at least delivered his exposition with some style at certain points. But yeah, it's like if we had just gotten like Millie from the start, I would not have complained because it's like that's because she is like central to the heart of the series, and seeing this guy, and when we see him like paired with Meryl, so you think, wait, this is what they treated out Millie for?
Right.
No, I don't think so. But also I do think even if like this version of Wolfwood isn't quite the like the GOAT supporting character that he was in the original series,
Mm-hmm.
I think that they do a good job like contrasting his perspective with Vash's as well, especially when it comes time to take out like a Mona of the Gale.
Yeah, they seem to get into that faster, the difference, in their philosophies and their conflict, even though they, I mean, in the original anime, they have a lot of time to spend together to really develop more of a, like, uh I don't mean this in a bad way, but like a bro relationship, like a close male
Mhm.
friendship,
Yeah.
you know? And and so there was a little less of that. Like, even though they have him in there, you lose a little bit of that connection in this show because there's so much action right away, and it's so obvious that he's like part of the Gun Ho Guns right away.
Mhm.
Even Vash kind of knows it. Um, so I feel like you don't get that. And then, because Millie and Meryl kind of balanced out Vash and Nicholas G. Wolfwood in the first one, like I feel like there's an additional loss in their bond because they don't bond over the girls, in a way. And then uh, the other thing is that Roberto De Niro sort of overlaps with the role of Nicholas G. Wolfwood, especially as he, like you said, sort of as a cynical, a little bit more.
Font of exposition.
Yeah. And so he just, I just couldn't appreciate him.
Yeah.
I want to say I gave him a chance, but I don't know.
No, it's like I understand, but also I want to say that it was interesting seeing this series take on Wolfwood because it's like, well, it's much closer to the manga version of it, which guess I was not like I said, I didn't really start reading the manga until like the entirety of the manga until like a couple weeks ago. So seeing this version of Wolfwood, basically like a kid who is basically aged up into an adult like through genetic experimentation, it kind of makes it seem like he's like a literal interpretation of the concept of Batman, basically a child sense of justice, like in an adult's body with all the like skills and technology needed to make it so. But it was also interesting like to see him confront Livio as well, because like I was willing to take this conflict with Livio. It's like as it's just it's like it's someone from his past who he's has to take out, but um it's a lot more subdued compared to how it went out in the manga, and I get the feeling that if they when the series comes back for a second season, like they said it's coming back. It's coming back in some form. We don't know if it's going to be like a second season. I mean, that seems like the most logical interpretation, but it could just be a movie or an OVA. But the second season seems to be like most likely at some point. But yeah,
Maybe.
they really need to like dig into like his relationship with Livio at some point.
Yeah, they're definitely not done with Livio. I mean, even Legato and
yeah, that was a great.
He was with them. They're like, oh, he's still going to be useful. Let's go get him.
Oh man, it's like Legato's like reveal in the series was, on one hand, it's like the little bit of Legato they used in this series was really effective. Like, I mean, just like the kind of guy who was gonna try and like destroy Wolfwood's orphanage. It's like, yeah, that's the Legato I know. But also,
No.
but also when Legato like looks genuinely upset at how things are going. I was like, I was watching this, I told Steve like, what, dude, is that Legato looking upset?
He loses his cool already. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was actually something I actually appreciated that, because he was just someone who just like maintained his cool at all times, like in the original series. In the manga, he was like he struggled a bit more, but here it was refreshing to see a Legato who was just not in control of everything all the time, and I fully expect that we're going to get to see him more front and center in a follow-up, because to bring in Legato, like a character like Legato, just for like 2 episodes, that just kind of feels like, oh, okay, yeah, we kind of had to do this. I mean, we didn't actually have a story for him, but we kind of had to do this.
Yeah, he kind of seemed a little out of place, especially considering like both the original anime and the manga had such a sort of unified story for the steam train episodes, you know,
We
or
didn't get to see
season.
Brilliant Dynamite's Neon in Stampede. We
Yeah,
just got to see the bad lads.
and I kind of feel like it was another example of like how the original anime had time to like make all these relationships and make all these characters that, you know, humans that Vash had touched their lives at some point, and you know, like you know, like
Yeah.
he meets the boy on the steam train, and you know, like gives him an opportunity to like, you know, redeem himself basically. And so it's like there was such a different episode that it was hard to you know, it was just like a little bit hard to appreciate some of the, you know.
No, you're right. And it's like, I think that it kind of ties into like my biggest like issue with Stampede, and that it feels like we got the back half of a series without getting its front half. Like we didn't get like the all the stuff that would endear us to the characters, that would allow us to like, you know, take all these like, you know, storytelling risks with them, or do all this like crazy stuff that the series does with them over the course of these 12 episodes. I like what they do, especially like, you know, the series does pick up more narrative momentum as it goes along. It's like, especially in its like last couple episodes. But I think that, you know, it's like that Stampede, you know, definitely needed more episodes that you order to get its full impact. And while I'm glad that it's going to be getting, you know, more time to tell its story, like as it goes along, it's, you know, it's also interesting to consider that, you know, like this is basically like one big prequel that touches upon like, you know, stuff that we knew about in the series, but it goes into more greater detail. Like the like it's one thing to realize that, you know, when Vash, you know, tries to save July in the final episode, and that Knives just like loses his cool like in the course of that, you realize, oh, wait a second, this is like Knives isn't dying here. This is how he lost most of his body,
right,
because of Vash's actions.
Yeah, I had that realization kind of afterwards, like, oh, wait a minute, they're going to do a second season. Knives is not going to be totally, I mean, he sure looked like he was totally destroyed, but I think he's not.
Yeah.
There's no way, you know. Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate a lot of the things that they did as far as, I don't know, without the last episode, I would have a much more negative outlook on Trigun Stampede. But the last episode did so many things right.
Yeah.
That I really, I guess I would say I loved the last episode. Because there, you know, there was a lot of cool things in it. You know, like Vash got to be cool.
we got the call out to Millie.
We got the call out to Millie, although it was a little heavy-handed. Let's be honest.
And also we got the whole 60 billion double dollar bounty now.
Sure, we got that too.
Yeah, because I was thinking when like it was established early on, it was like, oh, he's only worth $6 billion double dollars. It's like, what, has deflation hit no man's land now?
Yeah.
But oh, now I get it. This makes sense. And also, like, you know, the final episode basically introduces us to Eric's as well, which,
yeah,
you know,
and I was like, okay, they're kind of bringing it around. Like I can appreciate that, and
it's something that incorporates like the manga and like and its inspiration from the original anime. So it's basically like we're getting like probably something that is from like that is like all three versions of Trigun continuity now have in common.
Yeah, and if by some misfortune they aren't able to get a second season out, like I'm actually satisfied with this as a, you know, like for a Trigun fan who knows all the other, you know, lore existing, like I'd be, you know, I'd be okay. I hope they get the opportunity to do it because I do want to see what they, you know, plan to do. I mean, it was good that it was a little less predictable, you know, because I know, you know, the Trigun Maximum, like you said, I was expecting them to kind of just do more of that, you know, give us a show that kind of gives more of the overall manga. But I guess I was surprised that they took a different direction, and I'm trying to appreciate it more. I'm going to try to rewatch it and maybe that'll give me a little bit of a different perspective. I'd say though, the mood is probably not going to change in the second season. And the difference in mood, like even overall, even in the poster, right? The poster looks like it's at night and it's kind of like over like the neon like City of July or whatever.
Yeah.
This was more of a nighttime Vash the Stampede and Trigun. Like so many things seem to take place in like the late afternoon or the evening, and it was dark, like literally and figuratively. Vash was really not the same character that he was in the anime or the manga. He was much meeker. And, yeah, he had goofy moments, but they seemed like really forced, in a way. Like,
I can see what you mean there, but at the same time, like, he's probably this Vash is probably a bit more consumed by guilt over like, what had happened. Like this is what Vash was aware that, he had that Knives made him complicit in the destruction of Project Seeds. Like, and he was just like, even though like, this is like really wasn't his fault, he just kind of like took that guilt on. It's like, more readily than you'd expect.
Yeah, the differences in his character do make sense given that this is more of a prequel angle on his character. He hasn't had that confrontation, the first confrontation with Knives that he, in the anime, like you start out and he's already technically had that confrontation with Knives. And you don't learn about it till much later, and he doesn't have much memory of it until much later. So it kind of makes sense. And I think one of the criticisms that I have about how they show that part of his backstory is that they seem to do a repeat button on Rem's character in the form of Miss Luida, which is a little odd choice. Like I know that in the manga and in the anime, it's like he lives with this, group of humans that are in a pretty preserved ship. And Miss Luida is among them in the manga. But it's handled much differently in this show, I would say, because he just hasn't developed as much. So she really kind of becomes like an echo of Rem in a way, which is too bad because in the manga you kind of get the feeling that she's like sort of like a quiet badass, like she's a thinker and she's done so much like planning and she's got a level head and she's a different character than Rem, she's very different. But in this show, she's actually very similar. And that's okay as a choice, but it's, it's kind of weird. Just like having Roberto De Niro in there.
Yeah. Okay. But I guess like overall, it's like, like Trigun Stampede. I mean, like a good show. Like for what it was, it's like, it's good. It's good for what it was. And it really could have been a lot worse.
Oh yeah,
like all told. But I guess like since we're coming close to the end here, it's like so I guess which version of Trigun do you think is the best, Marisa?
Oh well, the anime has got to be the
which anime?
The original anime. I'm sorry, I say the anime and I just mean the original. Yeah, that's still the best version. Like if I could only have one ever, of course it's going to be the original. But I did, I want to appreciate them all on their own. And I would say too, we haven't mentioned the animation in the new one.
You're talking, like the 3D CG from Studio Orange.
Yeah, I do think overall, although it was a little like dark set, the actual choices of, scene were a little dark for me. I thought the animation could obviously be really cool in parts. I didn't like the bobbly heads. People were a little too bobbly. Rob was saying it reminded him of the Deus Ex game where like they had really good like modeling and stuff, but they just moved the characters around. They moved the figures around a little too much while they're talking. They're just like bobbling and moving. Like just because they can do it, they shouldn't. They should not make the characters move that much.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I like I think the animation in Stampede was really slick, and
It
I think
was.
I think it had a lot of, it's like, and watching that was had a lot of appeal for us. I think like of the stuff that Steve and I were watching for this season, this is probably, I think it was probably like the best animated of the bunch, just because when they wanted to pull out like a really fantastic action sequence, they could do that at the like a drop of the hat. I mean, like from when they were stuck in the belly of the worm, and like Wolfwood had to like spin his like like his cross laser to get them out. That was slick, and also Vash flying through the city. It's like in the final episode.
Yeah, that final episode, they
that
really had the CG.
They pulled out
shine
all
there.
the stops there.
Oh, they did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I know some people have complained about the look of the series, but nah, like I thought it was fantastic. I'm looking forward, and assuming that Studio Orange gets a second season to do this, like I'm looking forward to seeing what they, it's like what they manage with it. And also, as far as I'm concerned, I still think that the original Trigun anime is probably the definitive version, but I also admit that like nostalgia is a hell of a drug.
Yeah,
because it's like I think I can't speak for Marisa, but I was a lot more impressionable, when I watched Trigun back, like for the first time. It's like, and yeah, it definitely made a definitive impression as one of the all time greats. And I gotta admit that Stampede, actually put up a good fight against those impressions. It's not, it didn't win, but I still appreciated everything it did. And the manga, it's like like I said, there's a lot of stuff there I like, but at the same time, it's like the pacing there just kind of like keeps me from calling it like the definitive version.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So I guess, John, you got thoughts on your end about this?
No, I just do like using, you both said, the like Trigun. It's that's the anime.
Yeah,
the original, right? So, like, was there ever a question, right? Of being anything else? That's of course what we're talking about.
Yeah,
and I totally get that. I totally understand that. So yeah, that's awesome.
Well, and I hope that people because I've read some forums and people really love Stampede, and I hope it creates maybe some new fans for the original too. Like I hope too. I know I'm glad that I got the manga when I did, because apparently it's all out of print and not everyone's going to be able to appreciate it.
Well, it's like if you want to get the manga these days, it's like in English, legitimately, it's got to be digitally through Dark Horse's. Either through their app, really, because for whatever reason, it's not available on Comixology anymore. But stuff not being available on Comixology is a whole other shit show right now. But I was lucky enough to when I was buying this, I was like, hey, oh wow, Dark Horse is offering a manga sale. Oh wait, everything Trigun is on sale right now. Lucky me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I one of the weird litmus tests I found out about some, like a revisited franchise coming back is if you go to an anime convention and you see someone cosplaying as that.
Yes.
And you're like, wait a second. What? And and I saw this actually, and it's actually related to something we were talking about in the pre-show. I saw someone at I think Fanime a few years ago, and they were dressed like Cardcaptor Sakura. I was like the first season, I was like, wait a second, why? Oh, it's because Chris, the clear card is coming out. And actually, so sometimes when the newer material comes out, it causes people to go back and like look at the roots, which I'm totally about. So if you haven't, it's kind of one of those weird litmus tests to see like, oh, hey, that's so it's
Oh,
cool.
and if you have Hulu, I'm really glad that they have both the original anime alongside Stampede. Like, if you're watching Stampede, you'll probably see it right there as a suggestion.
Yeah, so don't watch one, watch both.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also I will say that my hope this year going to Find Me is that I'll see people cosplaying as both new and classic Trigun.
Yes,
and hopefully when they if they ever like come together, like they won't just be pointing guns at each other. They'll just be given like flashing the love and peace sign. Like,
yeah, maybe they can recreate that cool drawing that Yasuhiro Naitao did of the new and former Bash.
He did that? He did something
like
that?
Yeah, I'll send you that.
Oh, yeah, that sounds rad.
Awesome. So you're going to be talking about next week, Jason?
Well, next time, it's, like I said, unless something comes up, it's probably going to be Iron Man by Christopher Cantwell, because that's something that's come up like entirely on Marvel Unlimited, and I don't actually have to spend any actual money to talk about. But but I'm glad we had this talk. And Marisa, thank you very much for joining me this time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so maybe eventually one of these days we'll get you on to talk about something else. I mean, I should have had you on to talk about Battle Angel Alita at some point.
Ooh.
But maybe once Mars Chronicle is finished, we'll get. But that seems to be like a ways off at this point. So hopefully we find something cool to talk about before then.
Sounds good.
All right. So catch you next time on Comics by the Glick.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.